Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
All the way from Florida today, someone that I could say I have a little bit of a kinship to because we're both bassists. Maybe that's about as close as we can get. And I grew up listening to Chicago, as from what I understand, this gentleman did. However, he took it to the next step. Jeff Coffey is with us today here on the business side of music. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you for being here. We got to go back to the very beginning. It's kind of where we always start with everybody. But I guess my first question before we even do that was, when you found out that you were going to play with Chicago, what was that like?
Well, it was completely thrilling. Word had been going around that, they were looking for someone to kind of fill in for Jason Scheff, and he needed some time home with his family. I had heard that they had been working with some people, some guys from LA and a couple of guys from Nashville. It wasn't working out. And so they looking around again. And I had been going up to Nashville pretty regularly for about a year or so, a year and a half, every month, going up and jamming with some friends, good friends of mine, Tom Hurst and Chris Nix. Tom Hurst is a phenomenal drummer. I've known him for years. We were in bands together. He plays with Tracy Lawrence and Chris Nix. And these guys, they were doing the Nashville Drummer Jams, which is a really cool thing for charity. And they're also doing the Lounge Jams. And I started coming up once a month for about a year, a little over a year, and just networking with a bunch of great musicians. All these guys had touring gigs with country artists and rock artists and stuff. And that's kind of how I got my name in the hat, to try to get some auditions. And I auditioned for Billy Currington, after, that kind of stuff. And then I got the call from a friend of mine, Chris Nix. He said, hey, man, you're probably going to be getting a call from Keith Howland, the guitarist from Chicago. And I was like, Chicago? What? Sure enough, about an hour or so later, I got the call from Keith. Keith and I hit it off right off the bat. We just so happened to have a musical kinship. We're both total fanatics. We're coming from the same page musically, and we hit it off right off the bat. And so I sent in some video auditions to the band, like about 4 different songs of theirs. Went up for the audition and got the gig. So it was pretty crazy. It happened fast. I had 2 weeks to get ready for the gig, a whole show, 32 songs. I had to memorize lyrics and everything. And
wow.
I lived in my studio for about 2 weeks. I didn't come out of it hardly to eat and sleep and just to get ready for the gig. And then that was in May of 2016 is when I started.
And of course, you got to meet someone that I understand you really looked up to, which was James Pankow.
Oh, yeah. See, when I was during high school, junior high school, and college, I was a trombonist. And so, James Pankow was like one of my heroes. I was when I was in the college programs, I was trying to put together a band kind of like that with horns, but I never could find a rhythm section that wanted to do it,
right.
And then when I was in college, I was surrounded by so many great musicians, so many great horn players and trombone players that I realized that I had kind of hit my peak on the instrument. I never was going to be the trombone player that I really needed to be to do it professionally. And by that time, for years, I had been really dabbling in bass. And I ended up spending more time in my dorm room shedding bass to guys like Lee Sklar and Pino Palladino and people like that. And so I sold my horns and bought bass gear and joined a band. And so to be able to have the opportunity to play in James Pankow's band his songs with him was a dream come true. It was really cool. And Jimmy and I had a great relationship.
You as a bass player, was that something that you had always kind of thought about in the back of your mind? Because literally to transition from trombone to bass guitar, that's a pretty big leap.
Yeah, well, it's funny how it happened. Fortunately, it's for reading, it's in the same clef, which is great.
Yeah.
But when I was in junior high school, I had some buddies, and we said, hey, let's put a band together. And we had a guitar player, we had a piano player, we had a singer. They needed a bass player. I said, I'll play bass. And so I borrowed a friend of mine's dad's bass, and I just started working on it and got the blisters and got the bloody fingers and until it all kind of came together. And we had a little band in junior high school. You know, we played for like the grand opening of the Dairy Queen, you know, and the Little Miss Apopka pageant and, you know, stupid stuff like that, and to cut your teeth for the first time. So that's how it started with bass. And then when I was in college, I really was spending a lot more time on the bass than I was the horn, and really trying to hone in what it was all about to lock in with the drums and the groove and everything. So
when did you realize that you were going to take things professionally in your life? Was this during college or was it after that?
Well, I always felt when I was in college that I really wanted to do music, but I got a full ride scholarship to Stetson University on the trombone music performance. It was a music performance degree. And Stetson is an amazing music program, but it's very classically oriented. At least it was back then. It was really geared towards people who were either going to have a gig in an orchestra or teach music. And I didn't want to do either of those. So I transferred to UCF, University of Central Florida, and they had an amazing jazz program. And while I was there, we got to tour, and we went to Europe for 2 weeks, and we went to the Montreux Jazz Festival and played, and went to the North Sea Jazz Festival and played, and it was a great experience. That was my first taste at playing music on the road with a bunch of guys, you know. But I knew that I wanted to do it. Even to the point where one day, of my third year of college, I'm sitting in a science class learning about plate tectonics, and I go, "What am I doing here? You know, I want to play music. That's what I want to do." So I left school, I withdrew, and I joined a band, put a record out, hit the road, and been doing it ever since.
What was that record that you put out?
Oh, that was with a band a long time ago called ISIS. Completely different meaning than we all are associated with now. We got it out of the dictionary. It was, you guys, kids, remember what a dictionary is? It was the Egyptian goddess of fertility. So, you know, it had this sexual connotation to it. You know?
Right.
So that was in a band a long time ago, and my first attempts at writing music, you know, so, and some of the other guys as well, so.
What was that journey like writing music? Because we've had songwriters on the show in the past, and many of them have said that their first experience was really abject failure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a journey of discovery. It's a journey of you get into the motion of, okay, trying to get something out and something down. And inevitably the first songs that you write, you know, years later, you look back at them and go, oh, you know, but you have to go through that to get to the good stuff, you know, and it's kind of a cathartic, you know, process, but you have to go through that journey. You know, you have to go through the process of trying to be creative, and the more you do it, like with anything, the more you do it, just the better you get at it, hopefully. But yeah, you know, sometimes well, it's been a long time. Some friends of mine will play these songs from that first record, and I go, oh, wow, you know.
And of course, your musical palette of writing and performing goes beyond ISIS and obviously beyond Chicago. You've actually written music that has been featured on many, many TV shows. When we start looking at your bio, and it's not just a few, you have been on a lot of things.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, on my earlier records, my first record was self-titled, and then my second record, which was Long Way Home, through my distribution company, but I also signed on with some of these sync licensing companies. And there were various ones back when I was doing this, early 2000s. Through those companies, eventually I started getting placements, which was great because, you know, you get a lot of little placements here. They use a snippet of your song in this or that, you know, and you get your pro check, your BMI check, and you go, okay, where was this being played? It's in this show, and it's being broadcast over on MTV, but it's over in Europe, and all these little things, you know. One time they used the intro of one of my songs during the commercial breaks going in and out of the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade one year, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I got a prime time spot on a show called Men in Trees, starring Anne Heche. A lot of people would watch that show. It only had one season, but I got a prime spot there, which was really cool. So yeah, that was fun to get those.
We're going to take a break, get a word in with one of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Jeff Coffey, and we're going to talk about not only the projects that he has since worked on, but a new one that is coming out.
Hej, to Macy I słuchacie Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right, everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics. All written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio with us, all the way from Florida today, Jeff Coffey has joined us. You have released, if I remember correctly, you have 3 projects that have come out, solo projects of yours.
Right.
And the first one you said was self-titled, and you've had 2 since then. I guess the latest one was Origins?
That's right. Yep.
How have those been received out there in the world? And I guess maybe I should preface that by saying, are these pop, are these rock, are they country? Is it a kind of an amalgamation of all of them, or is each one kind of its own unique footprint?
I would say it's rock, pop rock, if that genre even exists anymore. I don't know.
Right.
At least on radio format. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, pop. It's pop rock. It's rock and roll, but with a pop sensibility. So Origins, which was my last one that I did, was a tribute album that I did, you know, basically to say thank you and pay homage to some of the great tenor rock vocalists that, you know, fired me up to want to do this for a living. The kind of people that just moved my soul when I heard them sing. And so that's what that record's all about. I visit Journey songs and Foreigner songs and Sting and, the Triumph and Queen and all these bands that fired me up. They're all celebrated on this record. So it was a really fun trip down memory lane to record these songs, as it has been for a lot of people who bought the record and listened to the music. And it really is a fun trip down memory lane. We get just an opportunity to celebrate those songs again.
Triumph is one of those bands that you don't hear that name often enough, but they were definitely trailblazers in the day.
Rick Emmett's voice was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, it still is. The guy can still sing. It's amazing.
And then you've spent some time also before the COVID pandemic hit and shut everything down. You spent some time on the road with Don Felder, who, of course, was with the Eagles. Yeah. That's been a fun experience. About 3 months or so after I left Chicago, I'm sitting in my studio doing some work, and I get a text
from Don Felder.
Had you met him previously, or?
Nope, never met him previously. And I thought, I just got a text from Don Felder. That's odd, So I called him and we talked. Roundabout story, he saw a lot of video on social media of me when I was with Chicago. And initially, my time there was just kind of subbing. So he got my number from another really good friend of mine, musician, amazing drummer there in Nashville, Rich Redman.
Oh, yeah. We've had Rich on the show. He's a good guy.
Yeah. And so Rich gave him my number a long time ago when I first started playing. Then I actually officially joined Chicago, so then he never called. But then once he saw that I had left the group, then he called me. And so it's been so much fun because it's really the guys in the band are great, and it wasn't taxing on the schedule because there's a lot of times where, depending on what part of the country is, I'll play shows and then another guy will play shows. And so, but playing with Don has been great. It's a powerful set full of big Eagles hits, and he still sounds amazing. He claims that nickname Fingers, and it's for a good reason. He's amazing. And it's really cool to play these great songs and look over and during the solo and say, yeah, there's the guy played the solo on the record. There he is, So it's pretty cool.
You're currently in the middle of recording your 4th solo album.
That's right.
Which is This Time Around.
This Time Around, yeah.
And let's talk about that one a little bit, because you have a single out that is got a YouTube video called Someday. But let's talk about the project and where that's going.
Yeah, this was one, I actually began writing songs for this record about 3 or 4 years ago. Then I signed on with a management company, and we started putting this tribute. Well, and then I got the Chicago gig, and then I was gone and busy, and everything just got put on hold. And then when I left the band and then I signed on with a management company, we decided to put this tribute album together. So then we did that last year and all of that preparation. So then I started really after this pandemic. When this pandemic started, we were doing shows with Don Felder, and we were on a couple of rock cruises. We did the 70s rock and romance cruise, and we did turn right around the next week and went on the Rock Legends cruise. So much fun. Those cruises are great. But that was right about the time you started hearing more and more cases about COVID and all this stuff and possible quarantining. And I saw on the news, I was on the ship and I saw the news that said, the worst place to be right now is in a confined area with lots of people. I was like, great, Then right about the time we got off the ship was right at the very beginning of March. The brakes went on. Yeah. Quarantine, the industry shut down, everything just shut down. It was at that point that I really said, okay, well, it's time to make this next record. So then I started sitting down and I had, my phone, just a slew of song ideas, I decided to go through them all and pick the best 10 ideas that I had. And I had already had a handful of songs that I had started to record a few years earlier that I needed to finish. So I said, between these 10 and those, I'll have a record. And so that's what I did. I picked the best 10 that I had. And I said, okay, I'm going to write these, which is what I proceeded to do over the summer of this year and in past the summer. So that's been the saving grace for this pandemic, the fact that I had a big project to do. Otherwise I'd be going stir crazy. But I've also been doing live virtual shows here with, for fans, and it's a way to stay connected, way to keep my chops up. I've been very busy since the pandemic started, writing and recording this record. And I'm really, really loving the way it's turned out. The songs are in a better place for me. I'm more proud of this record than any of my previous stuff I've done. And it's great to be working with Rex Schnelly again on this one. I worked with him on Origins. Phenomenal multi-instrumentalist, producer, engineer, but he's an incredible guitar player as well. Right. He's an artist himself. And we're working together on this record again, doing it remotely. We have not been in the same room physically since we started working on this record.
How unusual is that? Or is it just kind of a weird vibe that you don't have that intimacy of being in the same room together? Or are you able to connect and click through it all?
Yeah, it's actually been working really well, which is another reason why I already had this great working relationship with Rex, and I knew that it would work this way. There's nothing more gratifying than being in a room together with other great musicians and making music together. There's something magical about that. You know, I did it for a few tunes on my last record on Origins, but we did it this way with Origins on a lot of other tunes where he would basically build the tracks and I would go sing on them. So we already had this remote kind of relationship working. I would go up to Nashville and I sang all the vocals for that record at Omni Studios there in Nashville. So I knew that going forward, I wanted him to work with me on my next record of all original material. And I would basically demo the songs here, the brand new ones, create a drum track and a grid and guitar and bass ideas and sing it with backgrounds and everything, and then give it to him and say, okay, let's build instrument tracks. And that's what he would do. And it just, this record is turning out phenomenal. I'm really excited about it.
We're going to take another break, get another word in for another one of our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Jeff Coffey. And I want to dig into this song Someday that you created the YouTube video for.
Hey, this is Macy, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Are you curious about Gordon Lightfoot's songwriting process or what it was like working with Prince in the 80s? Have you ever given any thought to what goes into a golf course design or writing a book? I'm Steve Waxman, the host of The Creationist, a podcast about people who create. Each episode features a different creator sharing stories that I hope will inspire your own creativity. The Creationist is available now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio, Jeff Coffey, all the way from Florida today, is joining us via Skype. This song, Someday, obviously, and one of the things we definitely don't like to do on the show is get political, but, you know, it's been a tough year for everybody. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit on. This song, when I looked at the video, I went, okay, I get it. This is actually quite cool what you're trying to get across. Let's talk about this song that you've created.
Yeah, this is one of those songs where I had the initial idea on my phone, you know, this cool groove and 6/8 progression, and so when I sat down to write the song, you know, I came up with chorus idea and other things, and when I sat down one day to start writing the lyrics, I really had no idea what I was going to write about. And then I just sat there and was just reflecting on all of the insanity that ensued in this country last year. And I just started writing about it. And the lyrics just started coming out, and I was done with the song by the end of the day. And I was really liking the way it was going because it basically, what the song talks about is an observation in human behavior. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
It asks the question and reflects on, you know, look, we've been here a long time on this planet, evolving. Is this all we are? Is this all we can continue to do the same thing to each other, you know, as human beings, fighting the division, the hatred? You know, mainstream news just feeds the fire, you know, and creates the division. There's just more and more of it. And we saw a lot of it come to a pretty nasty head last year. That's what the song was about. It was basically an observation in human behavior, how we treat each other, and has absolutely no political viewpoint whatsoever in the song or the video. It's just putting a magnifying glass on the stupidity of what's going on in this country, right, and how people act, you know. But the song remains optimistic in the end, asking the question, or saying that, you know, hopefully someday we'll be able to figure this out and coexist with one another and treat each other with respect and dignity again. Hopefully we'll get through this, but it was pretty dark last year. So
I agree, but I think the one thing is music continues to be the great unifier, and hopefully this song can help heal a lot of that.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I can only hope that when people listen to the song, they take something from it, take a little piece of it and kind of look at what happened, no matter what their views are on it. If they can sit back and look at what happened and say, we can fix this.
Yeah.
And it starts with me. We can fix this. If we just think differently, It's hard for people to think differently when they're being fed certain things from this side and that side, and then it just divides. So again, there's no political reference at all in the song, but it basically just says, look at what you guys did last year. Look at what we did. Not cool.
Yeah, we can move beyond that. Let's talk about the album. How is it coming along, and when do you plan on getting it out there?
It's coming along amazing. We're finishing up. We're putting the last touches on the last handful of songs on the record, production-wise and mix-wise. I'm getting ready to release another single next month. It's going to be the next single. Actually, this is the first time I've told anybody about it. So I'm going to be making those kind of announcements on social media as well. But so single number 2 is going to be the title track this time around of the record. I'm really, really stoked for people to hear this album. You know, I'm really proud of it, and I'm really hoping that as the summer goes along, and I think we may see light at the end of the tunnel for live shows, you know, in the fall. That's what I'm hoping for, to get back out there and play and support this record and play it live. Are you going to be doing your own gigs? Are you planning on going back out with Felder, or is it going to be a kind of a combination of both? It'll be a combination of both. I'm definitely planning on going out and doing my own shows, most definitely. And basically, I'm on call for whenever Don starts to work again and start putting gigs together again, and then hopefully I'll get a call for some shows. That has to be tough for the touring musician, and as you said earlier in the conversation, you just try to keep yourself from going stir crazy. Any words of advice that you can give that player out there, that musician, that artist, that session player, that can maybe just help them during this time? Any words of wisdom you might want to share? It's without a doubt been extremely tough. It's kind of hard when with the one thing that you do is taken away from you. It's like taking your car keys away from you, you know? Yeah. And it's you feel stuck. Fortunately for me, like I said, I had this project to do, kept me busy. But I will tell you, the other thing that saved me, too, was the online concerts. I would encourage anyone who's a musician out there, is used to gigging, used to traveling, and kind of lost their source of income, and you just have no reason to play. Going on and doing live virtual shows has been great. You know, it's been a way to keep in touch with the fans and keep your chops up. So really, it's given me that opportunity to do more of those. I started doing them before this whole pandemic started. When it really kicked in, well, I just kicked that more into high gear, and at the same time doing my record. I would say this, and in fact, I did one of the great aspects of the things that I got to experience while my time with Chicago was meeting some amazing musicians. I mean, we toured with Doobie Brothers, we toured with Earth, Wind & Fire, and during that time, I got to become friends with Verdine White, bass player, who is another one of my heroes. I remember shedding to his stuff when I was younger, and so we did shows together, and I got to know him, and he's such a gracious person, such a great guy, and such a legend. And I recently did an interview with he and his wife in their online program, and he said it best. He said, when this thing opens back up, it's going to be bigger and better than it ever was before, because not only are the fans chomping at the bit for live shows, but the musicians are chomping at the bit to go play live shows. So it's going to be bigger and better than it was. So I am looking forward to that. I think you'll be able to plug anything into that energy and get it charged real quick. Yes. Yeah. Yes. How can people find you? People can find me all over social media. They can come see me on Facebook. It's Jeff Coffey Music on Facebook. There's a fans page. YouTube. I got a YouTube channel. My website is jeffcoffey.com, COFFEY.com. Come join the mailing list. I send out newsletters, and my music is everywhere. It's everywhere where there's music for sale, streaming, everything. YouTube, Apple Music, iTunes, Napster, Amazon, everywhere. And they'll be able to get your new album that way? Absolutely. Very cool. And it'll be available, all this stuff's available on my website as well. Excellent. Jeff, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.
Someday we'll all look back in time. Someday we'll pay for all our crimes. Someday we'll fix what's going on. Well, maybe someday has come and gone. But as the world goes round the sun, is this all that we've Someday we'll find we're all the same. Someday we'll end these violent games. Why must we fight for foolish pride? Someday we'll find the answer. But as the world goes round the sun, is this all that we've become?
Never had one lesson.
You're out. Finished. Expelled.
This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.